All right, so here for the first episode of Dynamic Life Cycles. It's been a bit of a long time coming. Moved out of Steed, or stopped working for Steed, I should say, end of March. Started working over at Norco, obviously beginning of April. And then from that point, it was sort of a bit of a goal of mine to get the podcast set up, get into a nice space with it, be able to have a video side of things, and then also from that point just have some different guests on that aren't always perfectly involved in the cycling industry, which I was somewhat limited to with Steed Cycles. And not to say that was a bad thing, because it allowed me to build up quite a good sort of reputation and ability, and learnt a lot from that. But now being able to be out on my own, doing my own thing, I think it's going to be pretty cool and pretty interesting, who I can get, who we can see. So this first episode was a bit of an icebreaker for myself. I had Ash Kelly on, that allowed me to be able to get in. I know she's a great girl. She has lots of opinions, as you'll hear and see. And then from that point, sort of explained a bit more about why I moved and what the reasoning behind that was. The other really cool thing is, if you're able to share, get behind it, put it out there. I think the more we can get people around this, bit of a community. Always welcome any suggestions. I'm still new to the whole media world. Don't have any media training, so it's all self-taught. So if you have any suggestions of what I can do better or how I can do it better, always open ears. And same thing with guests. If you know anybody or could recommend anybody that wants to come on, or you think of someone that you would like to hear from, definitely reach out and let me know, because I'd be interested to chat to them. But yeah, I'll leave it with that, and hope you enjoy the listen and come back next time. Cool. All right, Ash, how are you?
Oh my goodness. Good. Time's flying. I can't believe it's like solstice. It's June.
Yeah.
It is going to be summer.
I know.
And it's like at this point in the bike industry, I don't know how it is for you. I'm like, no, it's been summer since February.
Yeah.
But also it's not even yet summer.
It's so weird, because like there's so much that's changed this year, obviously, and the whole reason of us doing this. But yeah, it's been in fast forward. The first 6 months of the year is insane.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, big changes. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
It's fun sharing this podcast thing we do now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm stoked. Like, you took over the Steed one after I left there.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, that are clicking on this for the first time and finding out about myself and also about Ash, is I worked for Steed for a long time and did the podcast there, and now Ash has taken over that, and I've moved over to Norco. And yeah, so that's where the podcast world comes together.
Yep. We've podcasted many times before now, and you can find those all at the Steed podcast, which I am now hosting, which I really, actually, this is something I like about podcast communities, is that sort of shared space. Like, you can do these like, oh, let's do an episode together about this, but we can continue the conversation on my show, or, there's like endless, boundless. There's no boundaries. It's boundless. Exactly. You can do whatever you want. And so it's neat to share that space with you.
Yeah. And the way I describe it to people, because a lot of people have asked why I enjoy doing it or why I enjoy podcasts. And the best way I can describe it to people is, it's the new version of talkback radio. It's essentially talkback radio on demand.
Yeah.
And if you think of like the movie world or the Hollywood is essentially now all on demand, like your Netflix, your Disney, whatever, all of those different streaming companies are all on demand. And now, I guess, not that podcasts are new by any means, but they're sort of come around to that point.
Yeah. And,
like,
it
radio
always surprises me. I still meet people who are like, oh, I don't really listen to podcasts. And, when something's like out of your field of relatability, out of your awareness, like, well, there's still people out there that don't listen to podcasts. Because I remember for people who don't know some of my background, I was in radio. I worked at CBC Radio for more than 4 years. And then I worked at News 1130 as a morning reporter in like live on air, pretty hard, fast paced radio too.
Yeah.
And news, hard hitting news kind of stuff usually. And I got to dabble in podcasting as a radio producer and journalist. That was sort of a casual float position that I did at CBC. And then I made my own podcast as sort of like, I ended up on this bit of like a social justice mission after I walked away from reporting, and ended up making my own podcast on chronic illness and systemic issues in our healthcare system for people with long-term chronic illness. And now being back in the bike world, where I get to take things a lot less seriously.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, I love, it's a blessing to have these conversations in this like loose format and talk about bikes and just our community and like what goodness we are surrounded with.
It's such easy conversation too. So, and I think that's like the whole point and topic of what I want to achieve out of the podcast world, and like what I did with the Steed podcast, and now what I plan to do in the future is just like get people on like yourself to talk a bit about their story, a bit about what's happening from my point of view as well, and things like that. Like, I don't know if you saw it today yet, but like Steve Vanderhoek's new edit.
No, I didn't see it yet.
Oh, you have to watch it. It is mind-blowing. Like, obviously we all know Steve is an absolute beast when it comes to any of that type of riding or obstacles, but when he went down to Utah, like with Jeff Livingston and Kelsey and a few others, and I was actually talking to Steve about it today, and it was sort of like, yeah, just crazy. But getting someone like him back on and chatting to him about his sort of opinions and ideas, and we were actually talking about Rampage because he was at one of the old Rampage sites, I guess. I don't even know which year it was, but at one of those sites, and he was talking about how big some of the obstacles are and how it's sort of like they're just putting their life on the line. But like, complete side topic there, but it's like just getting different stories like that out, and it's so easy to do that when you're just talking over time and there's no sort of restriction to what you're saying. Yeah,
no restrictions is neat, because I mean, doing the Steed podcast is neat because I have, as you know, it's sort of free reign, right? You get to make it what you want it to be. And I've said things on the podcast, on the Steed podcast, where I'm like, Kim's going to kill me. I can't say that. We sell those bikes.
Yeah.
But actually he's, you know, never said a word. He really does let us have our space and have free speech. Whoa, I guess really, we have some free reign there. And so, but you have, this is going to be like wide open. So I am curious, like, can we swear? Are we allowed to be controversial?
Anything you want.
Are you going to be pressing buttons? Are you going to go into like shock style radio?
No.
Like,
no, I'll leave that to the Mahalo, my dude guys.
Yeah.
What are they? IHFT or something?
IFHT.
I always get it mixed up. But I'll leave that to those guys. They do a good job of it, but I don't have that cheesy comedy bone, I don't think.
But you know what? Like, not like no shade being thrown when I say this. I'll just say it's not for everyone, right? Like, maybe someone's gonna think you're funny, Jared.
Maybe some people do.
I think there's a lot of people that think I'm funny, and I really appreciate it because I also think I'm funny. And I have a partner who deadpan is like, "Good God, girl, you are not funny." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" And I'm like, this person loves me more than anyone in the world. Does not think I'm funny. So I think it's marvelous that they can love me even without getting to experience my brilliant sense of humor, which I thought was my shining beacon. So,
yeah, I can kind of understand him. I'm going to side with him on that one. You are funny, but like,
it's okay.
Not as funny as others.
I love it. I love it. I get my own podcast. Be funny.
Yeah. No.
But it's interesting too, because sometimes one of the topics you and I end up talking about is like women's cycling spaces and what's going on there, and I try to keep a finger on the pulse as much as I can. And one thing I really do enjoy about a good women's bike festival or being around women for the day is like the goofiness, like how goofy and hilarious we can be. We will laugh till we pee our pants, and that is a little different. Like the edge is off when you're not around your partners and other men, or there's all sorts of reasons to feel those like dynamics, and people have different experiences of sharing the trails and stuff with men.
Yeah.
But when it is just like a ladies rip and it's some of your good old girls and you're having a laugh like that is pretty special. My ladies think I'm funny, and that's all I need.
Yeah. And I think when you get a good group vibing together, and I've done lots of coaching with just women's only groups. I've done rides with all sorts of different women, and you're right. Like, it's definitely a different vibe that when there is even just one woman in the group versus all guys. Mm-hmm. There seems to be a little bit more of a relaxed attitude and a little bit more, I don't even know how else to explain it other than a bit more relaxed and a little bit more laid back, and there's less sort of arm wrestling and measuring of each other and things like that. But it's kind of fun, and I do enjoy that, and that is definitely something. Another topic that I want to get into is and we can jump into it, is like women in cycling at the moment. Like, obviously last year with Rampage just like went crazy. They were sort of talking about, well, there was a lot of rumors about women being in Rampage last year. Didn't happen. Obviously Hardline now have women in it as competitors. I think last year they had a few women like test riding the course, I think. Like
this year, it was sort of the same, right? I think there's a rule that says anyone who rides the course top to bottom can absolutely be there for competition day. And I do think some of it, like some women had ridden it top to bottom. Though don't quote me on that because I'm not watching qualifying. But I think the choices were made by individuals that were just like, sick to be here, not racing. And that is something everyone who competes gets the opportunity to make that choice, right? Yeah. Sick to be here, not racing. And those choices were made. There's not like a women's category set aside yet at Hardline. And I think that like
this year there was.
No, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought there was too. And I was corrected while it was like playing live, the event. And I think that they were just riding ahead of the event.
Oh,
and not actually competing. Because we did, like, I watched Hardline and I was like, where's Hannah? I thought they were racing, but as far as I understood it, they were pre-riding but not racing. Let's just check it because I want to know. Because like I'm going off secondhand information, even though I was like watching it while I was cleaning the house, and it's hard for me these days to sit down and watch a whole darn race. It's like hours of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
I like to multitask. I keep falling asleep during the World Cups.
Yeah, but they go on forever.
It's like 3 hours or more. 4 hours.
Red Bull Hardline results. Here we go. Where's Gracie? Because Gracie did it.
Gracie did a top to bottom.
Yeah. Oh, maybe you're right.
I don't think she got a timed run.
I thought they did, but yeah, there you go. It doesn't look like it. Looking at Pink Bike here, she's not on that. Okay.
But like
maybe it was a bit of more like an exhibition type thing.
I guess this is the tough part with women's free ride still, is like where I'm getting most of my information is on Instagram or like there's I don't know where to go to get news. That's like, I guess we could go to Pink Bike. I just don't tend to go over to Pink Bike anymore.
Sorry.
Could go to Vital. I could go to Single Tracks.
So there was a women's division.
Okay.
So both Gracie and Louise Ferguson had timed runs in Tasmania, and then there was no women that actually raced in Wales.
I was thinking specifically of Wales, because I remember it in Tasmania as well.
Yeah.
And thinking specifically of Wales. Big year either way, and we have gone from like I think we said on the Steed podcast, I was all riled up the first time you had me on. I was like, I just heard that Red Bull said that women are never going to be in Rampage. And it was outrageous because just like, I don't know. You don't know the future. And whoever said never was wrong, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen that big shift. So that's been such a big win. And it's been really heartwarming to just to watch the women who did that work, like Katie Holden and Rebecca Rush, get the love and appreciation for the work that they did to make this happen, and Casey Brown, and like there was a really core group, I think, sitting down and negotiating and doing the massaging with corporate. And it was really neat for me because I often get this question, which is like, Katie Holden, right? And I'm like, no, no, I don't know Katie Holden. But we have a lot of mutual friends from the Pacific Northwest scene. And so I do get that question a lot. But I finally met Katie at Ride Lab in May. And I didn't just get to meet Katie. Like, I got to share a campground with her. And I remember laying there one night thinking, like, 2 days ago, I didn't know Katie Holden, and now she's keeping me awake with her snoring. Like, now I know Katie Holden.
Know her better than most.
Yeah, like we would we could fart and wake each other up. We were so close in our tents, and it was very cool. I got to sit and have breakfast with her, and I remember we were eating these crepes from the food truck, and it was myself and Katie and Deborah DeNapoli. Mm-hmm. And Deborah said, like, oh, I realize now it's been like a year since you broke your neck because you were here the week before you broke your neck. And we're here again this year. And I choked on my crepe, and I was like, I hadn't realized that yet. Yeah. Like, I am realizing that now that you say it. And I just burst into tears, and I was like, I don't remember what I said. I let my feelings flow for a while, and I was like, yeah, now I've cried over crepes at breakfast with Katie Holden. And so, I've always wanted to know her. And I understand now that to know Katie is to love her. She's just a bundle of precious love and joy. And it was really cool to see her get some positive comeuppance there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think, like, it'd be really interesting to see what the girls do with that space. I don't know the full ins and outs of, like, what they're going to do schedule-wise. I heard that it was over 2 days. And then it's like the first day is at women's, and then the second day is men's?
All I know is 2 days. That's what I heard. Yeah. I don't read articles anymore, just the headlines. For shame.
Yeah.
For shame.
Yeah, all the clickbait.
Yeah. Okay, news. Scrolling. I can't believe I'm that person.
But a question that was asked to me a while ago, and I didn't really know how to answer it, was it's amazing that women are doing what they're doing in sport now, but if we went back 10, 15 years ago, would it have been the right place for women to be in, like, mountain biking, or in the sense of, like, I think about all of the old stories, and you think about, like, names of trails, and you think about names of bikes, like you think of some of the names on the side of Cove bikes, like
was it an okay space for women?
Was it a respectful space for them to be in, and has it taken this time for the sport to sort of, I don't want to say grow up, but almost mature and become a respectful space for them women to be able to do that?
No.
Or is it, and this is where my brain sort of went, is it that the women are coming in and changing the sport to be that respectful place?
Yeah. We've always been there, and sure, there haven't always been as many of us, but there also haven't always been as many mountain bikers.
That's true.
Like, I remember going to we'd never see a fucking lineup at the Whistler Bike Park when I started riding there.
Yeah.
And still I rode with women. We were there. I don't know what the ratio was. I don't know how that ratio's changed, but I know, like what you said, like when I can't remember if we were on tape when we said this, but coaching and stuff, you have one woman show up and that whole vibration changes, right? Yeah. Because literally a different vibration just showed up. A feminine vibration just walked into the room. So when we add, I think, that feminine vibration to the industry, which is the work that we as women have been doing for decades now. Literally, I have been riding for 20 years. Yeah. Mountain biking. And that means that Katrina Strand and Claire Bouchard and these women who came before me have been riding for 3 decades. And we look at Betty, and we look at like decades and decades and decades of foundation and vibration changing that work has been laid out. I think that, and Katie and Casey showing up and building at Rampage, the women show up and the vibration changes. Whatever fear of change there was ahead of a woman showing up in a space starts to dissolve. And I think, you look at when I came into the Steed bike shop, I wasn't the first woman. There was one before me. I can't remember her name. Tony told me all about her. But there was a trepidation before I came in. Like, you know, there was a sort of warning given out to the team, like, hey, keep it clean, keep it cool, be respectful. We got a lady here now.
Yeah.
And then I walked in and I was fully myself and vulnerable. And that means that I'm a crass bitch. And I said whatever and had everyone stumbling over my, you know, just how awfully crass I can be. Not anything like in Australia crass, but like crass for Canadians. And definitely a blue collar girl. And it, you know, that fear went away. And then now there's a space and a shared vulnerability where you can get to know me. And then I'm not like a threat that's going to come in and ruin the boys club. Right. And so probably the industry and the slopestyle scene and the probably not race scene because it's segregated and it's always had a category, but still in the race scene still, right? Like hardline's a race, whatever. And I think that work has been done by women and allies, and now we're seeing that work be done by non-binary and different identifications of gender and sexuality as well is being done. And that foundation of work has strong roots in the women's movement. You know, when you look at what Katie and Rebecca have done down at Rampage, and they've been inclusive of LGBTQ plus, and so they're making space for those who are coming after them too. And I think that's really neat. So, you know, I mean, women were going to be in this sport, whether it was friendly to them or not. And we got we toughened up, we thickened our skin, and we survived. And what's really neat now, we had, I think, a lot of us mountain bikers, and I think of Katrina, and I think of Rebecca Rush, and I think a lot of us who are tough, right? Like with these tough lady personas. And I saw Katrina speaking as well at Ride Lab, and I just was so struck by her softness and the love that she brought to the podium, and how much she has shifted and changed in her femininity, and how much, because we've created that vibration now for us to be there without all the posters and stuff on the wall that are maybe making us uncomfortable or feel objectified, without the Marzoki girls and the Kokanee girls at Crankworks. Things have changed, and it is a lot neater for us. We don't have to armor up. We don't have to be on guard. We get to be soft and vulnerable. We get to make real connections, and we get to break down the fear of what is that change going to look like when the inevitable happens and women show up at this event. Yeah,
exactly. And I kind of think that it's, and that's what I mean, like, I think it's the right time. Like, people want women to be in, like, the amount of guys that I knew, or know, I should say, that wanted the women to be in the event is insane. So it's sort of like, and that's what I mean, like, I think it's not that it was never the right time, but I think now is that time where it's a group that is saying, like, yes, as a complete mountain bike community, versus just like one sort of small group over here saying, hey, like, invite us in. Like, it's not just that, it is everybody that's involved in that. And that's sort of the thing that blows me away. And like, even the same, I think back, like, I started racing mountain bikes in 2006, and I would go to an event with 200 people and there'd be 3 ladies there. And it's sort of like, it's definitely evolved. But then now living here in Canada and understanding the snow side of things, I've also wondered whether, with the ski resorts starting to open up more and be like, yes, you've had Whistler for 25 years, you've had not Big White, Silver Star has been around longer than that. I think they're almost at 30 years. But other than those handful of resorts, there are more and more resorts coming on because they can see the benefit of having mountain biking through the summer. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wonder whether, like, opening that area up has also opened up doors to the, like, snow sport girls, who I think in the snow sports, females have been much more accepted for a longer period of time. And it just, like, it is kind of interesting hearing your opinion about it. And I didn't even think about like Claire or Katrina or any of those, and how long they'd been around for. But it's sort of like the bigger group or the bigger community is something that I wonder about as well.
Yeah, when I think about the women that came before me, I do think about choices that they had to make in their time, because they existed in a reality where the kokanee girls were the norm, and there is no shame in the work that they did, and the advertising work that they did, and the sponsorships that they got that had them in bikinis, oiled up next to their big bombers. Like, I got nothing but love for everything everyone did to be a part of this and to make sure there were inroads and foundations laid. And I don't think anyone does. Like, we don't begrudge any of it. We all just existed through it. And we're here now, and there's great shit happening, and we have that base of allies. Like, I think, like you said, you look at it, I imagine a lot of the Rampage men fought for women to ride next to them. Yeah. I know they did.
Yeah. I was going to say, like,
I'm sure some also don't agree, and that's fine. Like, we all have a different experience in life, to each their own. And I think good decisions were made.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if any of the current athletes riding in Rampage would have that opinion of that they didn't think that, because there's such a high respect level, and like, as simple as looking at social media, you can see, I think pretty much everybody that competed last year was almost like, what's the opposite to protesting? Like, for the event, like,
totally.
They were for having women there, and it's sort of like they were putting it out there.
So I forgot. So I do remember that sentiment now.
I could somewhat understand, and I even know, like, talking to like the Godfather and people like that, he's even asking like why they're not involved and things like that, and he's like the original Rampage winner.
Yeah, so, and I wonder too. Like, I was last year when I thought it wasn't ever gonna happen according to Rampage or to Red Bull. And there's just like, like you said, the pendulum's going to swing. And when it transitions, there's some friction and a little bit of like, whoa, this is the process of change. Like, change looks messy. Change hurts. Change is weird. We're in it. We're doing it. It's getting done. It's great. But I love it now. Like, I think I went through a period of where, like, as a rider who was excelling personally, in part because there was a lack of female field to pull from. I was nervous that too many women would come and start getting faster than me, and the kids got faster than me really fast. And, I became an old lady, and my ego got a lot smaller. and I know I benefited from having a really small pool of women. And I think we should all hold each other able. I knew what events I could compete in and when not to go. And I was like, I'm never going to the World Cups. One thing that was always really cool is watching World Champs. When you watch the first few runs of World Champs and you see really like people who just got enough points in their national series to get to champs.
Yeah.
And that would have been me.
Yeah.
Like, I probably could have scraped together enough points in elite racing downhill because there were few enough women to compete with me that I would have done well.
Yeah.
And I would have got to World Champs and I would have fallen down the entire fucking Fort Bill course or something, right? Or Mont Saint Anne. Like, it would have kicked my ass. So hold people able to make their own decisions and compete where they're capable and where they're able. And I think that's what's important is holding these women as they go to Rampage and Hardline. They are able and capable to make decisions for themselves. Don't worry about them.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And if they want to be there and they can perform, then let them perform. Yeah. Talking about change this year, tell me a bit about what you've been up to. Like, you went to the Ride Lab stuff.
Ride Lab was good.
Yeah. Tell me a bit more about that.
Year 2 of Ride Lab. Yeah, so for me, big changes this year. Full-time at Steed.
Yeah.
Everyone knows I'm not at Dialed anymore. I love talking about this shit. Like, it's just like insider baseball of the... Yeah. I'm like, what? Like,
full bench racing.
This is my life now.
Yeah.
I'm a professional bike mechanic. It is so fun. Full-time at Steed, and it's like a neat little badge to wear. Really, what a fulfilling, like, opportunity. I had a guy lean in today, and he's like, hey... you worked on my bike last week or a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, oh no. He's like, you did a great job. Great service.
Those loaded comments always scare me. Like,
did I work on it personally?
The amount of times that I had, like, while I was on the as the sales floor manager there, and it was like, one of the staff would come up to me or one of the customer would come over and they're like, "Oh, you're the manager?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, such and such did this, and it's so amazing," or "This happened, or that happened, and it's so great." I'm like, "Cool. Could you rephrase that for me? Like, don't ever come up to a manager and be like, 'Are you the manager?'" Like,
It's so scary. Yeah. We get enough complaints. We do our damnedest. I love it. It's been really satisfying. I'm starting to, it's my third season, so I'm starting to learn even your most regular customers are only coming in every couple months, right? Yeah. Maybe like every month.
Yeah.
And so faces and names are hard for me. I'm much better with bleeding breaks. And, I'm finally getting to really know people and like, hey, how was that race? And I know you were just off there, and how's that condo in Hawaii? You've been road riding on the Big Island. Like, it's nice to give that to people and and then give them their bike back and be like, enjoy Kona, enjoy that road race, enjoy the Trans Rockies. And we have such cool people coming into the shop. Like, that is one thing that Steed has built and sort of separated themselves from the rest of the cycling industry, world, whatever you want to call it, within even BC, is just like that clientele is like so cool. And not to take anything away from the other stores, and I currently work at another store, but yeah, they are really cool, genuine, fun people. And it's like that's what is fun with that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we foster entitled shithead behavior as well. So I can say that because this is not the Steed podcast. There are a ton of entitled shitheads at every shop, but when you foster it, you encourage them to attend your store, and it's my job to love them anyway. And actually, the thing is, like, it's my job to foster it. It's my job to ensure that they do feel entitled to demand anything they want. Because at the end of the day, it reminds me of, like, I used to be a cook. And I spent a bit of a summer working at Barefoot Bistro up in Whistler so I could ride bike park on the weekends and then also get my staging hours in. Mm-hmm. And Barefoot Bistro was the tits. It was like top notch. Anything the customer wants, they ask for it, you go get it. It doesn't matter that we're in Whistler. We will helicopter that in for you if you need it. Yeah. And frequently flipping like $10,000 tables. Like, what a restaurant to work in. And it reminds me of that at Steed. Like, you want that? We'll get it. I get that for you. No problem. Yeah. I will get that for you.
You want this $18,000 bike in green? It will happen.
Racks and fenders. Put it on.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No questions asked. Yeah. Totally. And that's like such a good space to be in too. Like, and that's sort of, it's so crazy. Just some of the requests you would get in there is pretty full on.
Yeah. And it's still not, it's still... We do some custom stuff, sure. People think to ask us for custom builds, and sometimes we get some incredible sales staff sitting down and doing the work to put a custom piece together. But it makes you realize what it takes to be a custom shop, because that's not necessarily what we're doing. We're not doing a high number of frame up builds and custom work, and I thought that's what our clientele was really into, but it's not. There's some componentry shifts, but it's just. It's not, that's a different world, that kind of...
But I think...
in-depth clientele.
99% of people and bike brands are now aligned on what they want on the bike and what's being spec'd on the bike. And it's, like, I think back to when I first started racing mountain bikes, and it's like, you would buy a downhill bike, you would change the tubes from being regular tubes to being downhill tubes. You'd put downhill tires on it. You'd put a chain guide on it. You'd put a set of handlebars that were wider than 690 on it. You know what I mean? Like, you would buy a mountain bike and then you would change half the spec on there. Mm-hmm. And then when they first started coming out with chain guides, everyone's like, wow, like, whatever brand is coming with this. And then all of a sudden, all the brands came with chain guides. And then it was like, even like dropper posts, like, everyone would buy a bike and then they'd buy a dropper post to go with the bike. And now...
Most of the bikes are...
Yeah.
If you need it comes with it.
If the bike, like there's a $1,000 Norco now that has a dropper post on it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just what is set as the standard now. And it's, I think, even right through to that highest end bike, you can pretty much buy a bike that is ready to race the Tour de France or ready to race a downhill World Cup on the opposite end of the scale there.
Yeah.
And like, that's the big thing, I think.
It doesn't surprise me that people are satisfied with the bikes that are on the market that are spec'd OE. what surprises me is that in our market, specifically on the shore, that we don't see, like, I know we have Two-Wheeled Adventures and Dialed and other people that are like on hand to be these artisan custom one-on-one experiences. And maybe there's a high enough volume going through those places that I'm wrong about the percentage. I just had this perspective, which just is because I'm poor and I think everyone else is rich, that people are out there like, I want, you know, the blingiest hubs. We don't stock Chris King in a ton of shops here. So like, not even if you want to do a custom build with a Chris King headset bottom bracket, you'd be looking at ordering parts. And that kind of stuff still surprises me. Like, but it's hard. It's so hard for shops to inventory.
I kind of wonder if that's just the North Shore vibe, I think. Like, I don't see the North Shore people as being the most blingiest people. Like, the founder of Norco came into the store the other day and he was wearing just a daggy old t-shirt with a set of track pants and a set of New Balances on. And this is like one of the most wealthiest guys in BC, if not Canada. And he's just like cruising around, like, sure. Like, they don't have that. And I sort of look at it as like I don't even know the right word, but it's almost like your outdoor Aterix jacket is your going out jacket. You know what I mean? It's not like we're living in San Francisco or LA where everything has to be this super flashy, fashionable item. And I wonder whether that has anything to do with the way...
The bikes are flashy enough.
Yeah.
They are the Arc'teryx jacket embodied.
Yeah. I think if you went to Toronto, it'd be a different story because there's more fashion within that. And you see that with some of the staff that have come from Toronto and the way that they see the bikes and the way that they build their bikes, and they've got custom bikes themselves, versus you look at someone like Kim Steed and he will literally take whatever bike it is off the floor and just ride it. He doesn't need anything extra. As long as it works and it's practical and it does what he wants, he doesn't care what it looks like.
I like it. I mean, like, it also, like, it kills the shop if you're not modeled around it, right?
For sure.
Like, we have a model of efficiency in the shop where we're still just we're working our hardest possible, everything you can give in a day, just to support the bikes we've sold. Just to sales tune the bikes we're selling today. So I'm not asking for any more custom orders, but it's something to learn as a mechanic, right? Like, it's definitely a place I haven't hung out in when you're like speccing custom builds constantly. There's a flow and a knowledge that you get of sourcing and get your finger on the pulse of
how
parts.
Different parts link together, I think, is a big thing, and understanding what works with different items that isn't meant to work, and how you can manipulate what the textbook says. Right. I guess.
Yeah, so we have a mutual friend who works at Velofix, Sea to Sky, and he found on Reddit this text sheet. Did anyone share this with you yet? No. It's a Google Doc locked, and it's got all the pull ratios of like generations of derailleurs and shifters. Okay. And it's got all this cross compatibility information for sheets and sheets and sheets. And it is like, it's not all perfect and correct. Yeah. Like, this is, someone's put this together. It may be like AI generated. Like, there's so much information in here. So a select few of us have started sharing this little doc around. But it's funny because we don't, as valuable as having all your pull ratios in one space is, and all this data to pull drivetrain compatibility information is, like the maximum differential range of an Ultegra GS, 11-speed derailleur, this model is like a 16-tooth differential. Great to know. The amount of times I have to use is actually really irregular. Exactly. To be honest, like, it's worth its weight in gold, which is, it weighs nothing because it's digital. And that's about it, right? Probably the best worth its weight in gold, and yet it weighs nothing. Yeah. What? That sounds like a riddle. We'll come up with later. Oh, I know what it is. It's the Google Doc with the pull ratios. Yeah. But I don't remember how we got there. It's neat. You lose the, like, there is. This is a podcast I want to do. I want to have a round table of mechanics where we get this philosophical and deep about just like the importance of these Google documents and preserving our knowledge now that we're losing, certain generations of knowledge? And what is it like, especially with so few people coming into the trade? How are we going to...
You could look at it that way, but with everything evolving to being electronic, you may be losing the mechanical adjustment knowledge, but you're gaining the electronic adjustment knowledge. So there's this shift. It's kind of like telling... it's the argument of like losing the ability to handwrite but then touch type. What's more important?
Well, I mean,
like you see, like there's...
We can, I don't believe electronic shifting is going to be on every bicycle. And again, it gets so philosophical so fast because, like, what is a bicycle? What is a bicycle mechanic? Am I a mountain bike mechanic?
Yeah.
Am I an electronic shifter mechanic? No, I'm a bicycle mechanic. I have got to be able to knock out a square taper bottom bracket, put it back in, and deal with all sorts of cables, internal, external, all the old, like, and I'm a new school mechanic. Like, I can bleed brakes faster than most people can find a video to help them bleed brakes. But I cannot actually tune rim brakes.
Here's my opinion on it, and this is so good because we started talking about you loving how much you're being a full-time mechanic, and now we're super deep in a mechanical chat. But my thought is, if you look at the automotive industry, there is specific transmission people, there's specific brake people, there's specific tire people, there's specific everything.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, like, you don't take your car to get your winter tires put on at the mechanics, you take it to the tire place. You get your windscreen fixed at the windscreen place. Right. You get your transmission serviced at the transmission place. And there's like specific automatic people and things like that. So I think if you fast forward maybe even up to 50 years into the future of the bike industry, I think that's where it will end up going, in the sense of, and I guess it's already happening.
It has really, like, right?
You look at, let's take Dialed, for instance. Yes, he can work on road bikes, but he specifically draws towards a mountain bike. And I would class him as like your mountain bike specific people. We've got Fluid Function and whoever else is like shock only people. Like, they don't service drivelines. Yeah.
And you've got your e-bike stores, and you're like, when I see a certain era of commuter, I go, hey, I think you should go to MEC, because I think the value is going to be at that shop for you. Or exactly. You should check out our community bikes, because in terms of parts and inventory, they're most likely to be able to find you an extra fucking
exactly right. It's like saying you're not going to take your Ferrari to Mr. Lube to get a service done. That's just not how that works. But you might take your Ford Fiesta.
And you know what is so great about, like, for me, a good shop, and I get to be in one of them right now, is like I look up and I'm like, boom, Bridget is good at X, Y, and Z, the best at W. And like Tony's good at A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And Joe's good at X, Y. And you're like, you know what your people are good at.
But
and
that's
together we can
part
do
of
anything.
Building a good team.
Hard to do.
Very hard to do.
Because right now, most shops will take anything they can get if you send us mechanics.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, there's a lot of regulation that needs to almost be put in place for it to become specific.
Yeah, that's a whole other day of talking. Nope, denied.
Yeah.
Not going there. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What's it like to be on the
other side?
Like at Norco?
So, I sort of touched on it briefly at the beginning, but for those that don't know, as I say, I used to work for Steed. I was there for just over 5.5 years, and essentially just reached the ceiling within my career there, I guess. Without Kim or Steve, so Kim being the owner, Steve being the general manager, without them moving on, and it was very unlikely either of them were going to do that, being that Kim has been there since day one as the owner, and that's 97 he started, and Steve's been there for, I want to say, a good 20-something years, almost 25 years. So without either of them moving on, there was sort of nowhere for me to move up. And that was essentially the whole reason for moving out, was it was just at that point where I wanted to continue to learn and move up, but I was kind of stuck. And then from that point, opportunity at Norco came up. So working for Norco North Shore, who is a corporately owned store by Norco and Live to Play, if anyone knows who Live to Play is, to be their store manager. And from that point, there's opportunity to then move into headquarters. So the ceiling goes from essentially being a privately owned store to working beside, and I've had multiple people in the store working with me, from the global sales manager in Norco, the global marketing manager, consistently on emails with all of these different people, on Zoom calls with these different people. So my ceiling has now gone from being, as I say, sort of a privately owned store within North Vancouver to a global level within Norco. And that was such a draw card to go there. And even right down to only a couple of weeks ago, I got sent at the store probably about 6 or 7 Fox helmets that then had to be shipped from the store out through to whoever to paint Red Bull helmets, and just a very different dynamic within what my role and my day-to-day duties are. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of seeing a bit of the behind the scenes, having that access to talk to different people within the industry that when you're in a privately owned store, you kind of get a bit of a closed door to. Even though at Steed you do see a lot of things before it happens publicly, but then there's that next level of from being in a private store, as I say, to being in that corporately owned store, and just seeing things before they happen is kind of really cool to see for myself. And my ultimate goal is to eventually be in one of those global positions, whether it be in the sales or the marketing side of things, to help influence the whole industry, I guess, is my ultimate goal, is to be up in that area. So to have the opportunity to literally be working beside and actually delegating tasks to the global sales manager of Norco, like that's really cool in my eyes. So that's kind of, I guess, where I'm at. And then in the sense of the store, there's a lot of change that's happened there. So the store was formerly John Henry Bikes, who was, I would have to say, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, stores in town for a very, very long time. And unfortunately, there was some financial stuff that went down, and that was probably 10 to 15 years ago, I think, give or take. And that's when Norco stepped in to help out. And from that point, the store sort of had some very strange waves go through it. And it's no secret, like, there was some bad people in there was some good people in there, and about 12 months ago, Norco sort of, I don't even know how the right way is to say it, but changed what was happening in there, I guess is the politically correct way to say it. And then 2 months ago, they brought myself on to help step that game up even further to what they were trying to achieve, and essentially build out another store that gives very good customer service, gives that same vibe that Steed has now built and taken over. And without saying that I'm trying to recreate a new Steed, because I'm not, there is like that emphasis of like, okay, Steed is doing it the best right now, and there's no questions there. It's like, okay, what can we draw from these different areas? How do we draw from these different areas, and go from there? So going back to what you're saying about the different people in the team of like, this person does this well, this person does this well, this person does this well, that's what we're looking at now. So like our staff in there is really good. There's only 12 staff members in the whole store, which is kind of very different from coming from Steed that's a powerhouse with 50 staff members. So like my daily tasks went from managing people and customer expectations to everything from being the person that opens the cash register in the morning, right through to selling the bikes, right through to helping build the bikes, right through to ordering the bikes, right through to receiving the bikes. Literally 90% of the tasks are done with a shared hat, I guess, because of the level of staff we have and the way the staff are. We have some very good mechanics. We've got 2 Brazilians in there that are excellent suspension techs, completely rebuild suspension. So that's an avenue we're starting to build out and get the correct suspension tools and have the backing of corporate to help build that out, which is kind of good. And then the other side of it is building that sales floor out. So when people do come to town that are outside, so whether they're from another supplier around the world, or whoever it may be that's coming to visit Norco, the head people at Norco can bring them to our store and go from there. And something that I'm currently working on is how to build out a sort of a booking system within a storefront for demos. So there's lots of different apps out there, and just working on what works best for what we want to achieve and how we want to achieve that. So like that's another thing of just like, okay, bit of a trial store or a concept store in that matter, and proof of concept, I guess, is the right word there. So it's kind of like, okay, does this marketing work in our store? Okay, this can go out to our private dealers and private owners and say, hey, like, we did this in our store. This may work for you guys. If you like it, here it is to share. And that's the idea that we're kind of trying to achieve, is that combination of proof of concept, a good store for customers to come and work with, a good store for people to be in that has that social vibe as well. So it's really fun, and I kind of was able to start with a fairly blank slate, and it was cool because I got to try a bunch of ideas that I think with Steed, because of how big it was, I wouldn't have been able to try them. And it probably wasn't the right place to try them in because it was too big, and to steer that ship was going to take too long to change direction if it didn't work. Versus having 12 staff members, you can literally implement something and take it away in 48 hours and it doesn't affect anything. Versus if you have to implement something and put it into place with 50 different staff members, it takes a week before it even starts. And then before it starts and gets out of hand and then it's wrong, it's already embedded in so many people's minds that it's too hard to change back.
And then people resent the change back.
Exactly.
Like, no, that was a trial. That was what do you call that, a pilot project?
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay if it didn't work.
So I think with how small our team is, it is quite good, and everyone's very open to that. Everyone's fairly new. Most people in the store have worked there for less than 12 months. Very experienced within the industry, but a lot of people are less than 12 months now. I'd say almost all of the team.
Aww, so little baby Norco team.
Yeah,
just
that's
getting
cool.
to know each other.
That's cool.
Honestly, so. I wish you guys all the best, because I mean I don't like shit talking shops, but it's easy to throw shade at the doors of the previous iterations of what that store has been within the industry, and I see and hear and feel the shaping up.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad they brought you in to do some of that shaping up, and it's, it does make sense the way, hearing you frame sort of like what it's like to grow in a small business is, I guess the ceiling is a little lower. And I'm in, in my experiences in small business have mostly been like, oh, this is my part-time gig, or I own this, or, at Steed right now, I'm like, I broke my neck and I don't want to be committed to anything. So, like, for me, I'm not looking for the ceiling right now. Like, I don't give a crap what's above me. I'm perfectly content right here. But of course there's a ceiling that's going to be smaller when you've got staying power in small business, and it's beautiful in its own way. But I realize now when you're saying that, a lot of Steedsters, which was Kim's nickname in high school, just so everyone knows, a lot of Steedsters, according to Digger, it's secondhand knowledge, Digger told me that.
We'll run with it.
A lot of Steedsters go off into the industry to do big things.
Yeah.
They find inroads into, work as like reps for high level brands, or they work for high level brands, period. Lots of work within the industry. So it's like, it makes sense that, it's not a place you're going to stay forever. And a lot of people stay for so long because it is very sad.
It's so good.
Because a lot of us don't need.
And that's it.
That's the thing. Like it's amazing to have ambition and growth, and sometimes it's not right for other people, right? Like for me, ambition and growth is not a part of my vibration and energy.
Yeah.
And I we get people who come in and they're like, so I really envy you because you chose the fun job. I chose the job that's going to make me all the money, but look at you go, you dumb idiot who chose the job that's going to make you poor. And I'm like, man, I love my life. You know, like
you're happy.
We get these microaggressions all the time as bike mechanics where people are like, good for you choosing to be happy. And you're like, or like, so what is my housemate Mark was telling me he had a real one in the shop the other day. I can't remember exactly how it was framed, but basically he was just left so insulted, like, man, I like my and he's an engineer. Like he has a degree in engineering. He is a P-Eng, motherfuckers. Yeah. And yet here we are being belittled for working as bike mechanics. So for me, like I just want to put that out there. I don't, there are ceilings in retail and in the bike industry. We end up in the retail side of things so often, and we can be so hard on ourselves and judgmental about it. And it, it makes sense that to think and look for the ceiling and stuff. I just haven't found myself looking for it. Now I'm like, frick. But that's forgot like that was there.
I once listened to a book, and I don't want to say I struggle to read, but I don't read enough, so I listen to a lot of books. But I once listened to this book, and it was about how to pick managers and all about sort of managing people and things like that. And one of the biggest points that stuck out to me in this book was you have two types of people, and they're never always this exact thing, and what I mean by that is they can change between the two different types of people. But you have rock stars and superstars. So rock stars are people that are amazing at their job. They may be the best person in the world, but they don't want to move up. So someone like yourself. So what you do in that position is maybe the best that could ever be done.
Defies expectations.
Exactly.
Let me tell you.
Exactly. But they don't want to move up. They're comfortable where they are. They're happy where they are. They don't need to be paid more money. They just want to be respected and sort of secure in that position.
Valued.
Exactly.
And paid.
As long as they're exactly
well.
as long as they're happy with what they're receiving and they feel that is equal to what they're putting in.
They'll continue in rockstar status.
Exactly. And then you have superstar status. So superstar status may be your second or third best person. Sorry. This is the second or third best person in the role. So let's just take the mechanic, for instance, because that's easy to say. It may not be your your rock star mechanic that is the best mechanic you have, but it's the person that wants to move up and understand how to manage the people or how to manage the work orders or how to manage that.
Because my God, there has to be a willingness there.
Exactly. And that's the thing is there's that two, I guess, stereotypes of people that have either, that want to stay in the position they're in or the person that wants to move up.
Yeah.
And it all depends on what the stage of their life is. So a perfect example is a new to be mother, for instance. She might be driving crazy upwards through her corporate career, going up through all these different stages. She then becomes pregnant. She's like, all right, I need to stop driving upwards because I need to be comfortable and stable. So she goes from being this superstar to being a rock star. So she's not going to stop doing what she's doing, but she may not continue to climb the ranks, if that makes sense, because of, and don't take this the wrong way, but because of having a baby, there's extra stress on the body and on the life that then she can then sort of just stay in the position without having the stress of going upwards. And I realize I may be saying this to the wrong person.
Yeah, I think you're going to get in trouble for that. It's a bad example.
But do you see where I'm coming from?
Because there's
adding external stress outside of the workplace.
Let's go with a different example. Because I think you're going to get yourself in trouble with that. Because people will extrapolate. Because there is a stigma that women aren't going to continue to excel and reach for the stars after.
But there's also nothing to stop her from, once she feels comfortable to continue climbing that ladder.
Yeah.
But do you see what I'm saying?
Some people, but I think the thing is like you don't want to touch that as a time bomb, okay?
That's very true.
Through pregnancy, through postpartum, some people want to continue to be in that superstar status if that's in alignment with what they're searching. You know, one, I'm never giving birth. I won't be a mother, so I can't comment on that. And there's other experiences too where one would want to pull back and go to the family. But I can speak from the experience of someone who broke my neck. So I went from being like, I want to own my business, I want to be at the top of the industry, I'm going to be a superstar mechanic, to like, fuck this shit. None of it's important. What is important is that you breathe and you are present and you come from a place of love. Like, that's all that matters to me in life. That's it.
Yeah, and that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And who knows, in 12 months' time, you may turn around and go back to wanting to grow further in that career. And that's what I'm sort of getting at.
Hostile takeover, Steed Cycles.
And that's sort of what I'm getting at, is like, it's not a bad thing to be comfortable in your life and go from there. But.
No, it's not. You've got your, and the thing is, because we both come from, well, I come from management. We both come from a management background. Mm-hmm. People don't always remember, but one of my first real jobs was the cycling team leader, cycling optics, instruments, and camping team leader for MEC Broadway store. And I had a team that ranged from 20 to 40 people, depending on the season, all ages, all genders, all sorts of experiences. You know, people with degrees that far surpassed. I took that team on when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
And thank God MEC had an intense program of training managers. They put way too much on our plates and they worked us to death. And there's all sorts of post-traumatic issues I have around work because of my decade at MEC. But God damn it made me a good people manager. But you know what? As much as MEC set me up to be a good people manager, my team blessed me with honesty. One of the cool things at MEC was we had to kind of assess people, like, are they willing and able, and on what scale do we grade them? And we would do these annual performance reviews that, I swear to God, were like 18 pages long. And I would get carpal tunnel every year writing out my whole team's, like, I think they were 8 pages long. But the first year or two I did it, like, it was really hard for me to genuinely know what kind of feedback to give people, because I wasn't spending enough time with them on the floor. I was overwhelmed in my work. I was, in the back office, like, I don't know how to make a schedule. And I was an idiot. I was in my early 20s. I was just an idiot. But they would, bless them. I'd sit them down and be like, you're not good at this and you could be better at this. But I also appreciate it for this. And they'd be like, do you even know me? Do you see me? That is so not what's happening here. And they would call me out. And I remember specific people calling me out, and I had to step up and really be present with my team all the time, because I knew there were going to be many months of the year where I had to give them genuine feedback, and they were engaged. They wanted to know how to be better. They wanted truth. It was my role to give it to them. That made me a good manager. Yeah. And because I had to be honest with myself first and present with my team, and then I could be honest with them. And even, it came to be that even sometimes I would say, hey, this is a problem, and I think we could do this, and I don't like this. And then they'd push back and be like, that's not my experience. But I'd be like, actually, I have integrity in this. So I'm going to stand in my integrity here because I'm present. I have been with you, and this is my experience of your work. If you are not experiencing it the same, we have an impasse that we will have to work out. You know what I mean? Like, I found integrity in that work.
Yeah.
Management is an art. It's such an opportunity and a gift to work with humans, and it makes you grow as a person. Everyone in their early 20s should go manage a team of 40-year-old men who hate you.
Yeah.
And have to fire half of them in the first year. Like, what a brutal, brutal thing it was. But it made me move. Like, I could pick up any team and manage them, because all it really takes is love, respect, connection, listening. And I think that's where we get these really annoying tropes of, like, it's like working with a family.
And I think,
like if we're not whitewashing capitalism and the impacts of it, actually a good team is kind of like a family. If you set aside all of the brutality of capitalism, a good team's like a family.
Yeah. I'm going to wind it up on that note, because we've just hit just over an hour. But when you were saying all that, it kind of made me wonder, with all the different people's skills and different people listening and things like that is why I enjoy doing what we do. And why I enjoy doing the podcast. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
keep being that authentic expression of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the most important thing. Don't let anyone take that away from you. And like, it's really cool watching you grow and step into what's next. And
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good luck with all the people management, because it ain't easy.
No, there is a lot of it out there. So, but yeah, no, thank you for coming on and breaking the first podcast down with me.
Yeah, that was fun.
And I think there's going to be many more, hopefully. So, cheers. Thank you.
Congratulations, Jared.
Thanks. Bye.